Welcome everyone to Most Holy Trinity, and here we are in the kitchen again, just continuing with a couple of little meals we could make for Lent. And so tonight we're going to make some salmon patties. So we're going to use some star-kissed wild Alaskan pink salmon, and we have a raw egg and some mayonnaise. See our ingredient here with our Hellmann's, and some nice Italian seasoning, some chives, and some breadcrumbs and some lemon juice. So we're going to start by heating some olive oil in our frying pan. We're going to put this on to medium heat. Get our oil going there. One of the things you may have already done for Lent is to attend the Stations of the Cross. And that's a very ancient tradition in the church. It goes back to what they would call the Via Dolorosa in Jerusalem, that sorrowful way where Jesus actually walked carrying his cross, and all those different things that happen during that journey. Okay, we're going to drain this off. I guess that will about do it. Get rid of our little lid there. And we're actually told that the Blessed Mother, during her lifetime after the death and resurrection of the Lord, actually took time to go back to those different stations, in a sense we could say, or the things that happened to her son in his passion. And so in a sense we could almost say that the practice of following the Stations of the Cross maybe in a sense originates with her. But we know from somebody like St. Jerome in the 300s, who was living in Jerusalem. And of course, that's to be the time when he was translating the scriptures from things like Hebrew into Latin, so other people could have access to it to read it. And he reports about people from many nations coming and following the way of the cross. Now we're going to put our egg in there. We're going to mix that up a little bit. I like to crack it on a cup or a mug that can hold the shell. An interesting thing about the very early experience of people who were doing the way of the cross, and it was pretty much just in and around Jerusalem very early on, and actually even for a couple of centuries. But they would start at the empty tomb and go backward until they got to the house of Pontius Pilate. So kind of an interesting thing that maybe they thought the empty tomb was the most important of all the stations. So we're going to put a nice dab of mayonnaise in there. Hopefully you like mayonnaise, because that's a pretty good part of our ingredients here. Get that all mixed up. Later on, when you get up into some of the later centuries after Constantine legalized Christianity, the practice of the stations was actually spread. So it was practiced there in those places in Jerusalem, but other places would work out ways of making their own for people who couldn't go that far on a pilgrimage. So we're going to take our classic Italian spice at about a 1/8 spoon, measurement spoon. That's about right. There was a book They came around, just into the early Middle Ages from Germany. The Geistliche Strasse, or the Holy Way, the Holy Road. And they printed them out. And some of the early stations might have 7 up to 30. So you just never knew what you were going to get. Depends on who was putting it together. Another one was a person who was from England who went a couple of times over there to the Holy Land. And his name was William Way, but not W-A-Y, W-E-Y. And he also did a book of the stations, and he put them in the reverse order of starting with Pontius Pilate condemning Jesus to death and going on to his burial in the tomb, and that stuck. That stayed with us after that. When the Muslims took over in the 1100s, they would not allow any, so that was 1 teaspoon of the chives we just put in. We're going to put in 2 of our lemon juice. But they would not allow any public stations of the cross until the Franciscans, through St. Francis, kind of made a connection with the Sultan, and he began to allow the Franciscans to continue the way of the cross. Later on, they were the first ones to be allowed to have stations in their churches. After that, other churches could have the stations, but it had to be a Franciscan who put them together, who erected them for the church. After that, finally, some of the dioceses in England got the okay that they could have, without a Franciscan establishment of the stations, and then pretty soon it was given to the whole church. But the Franciscans started off in the Holy Land having the care of the stations of the cross, and later on were given care of all the holy sites in the Holy Land, and that's kind of something that continues today. There's an interesting church in Rome that's called, we used to call it the Bone Church. It's a Franciscan church, and they're part of the community that serves the Holy Land, but they're living in Rome, and so part of their promise for their order is that they would be buried in the Holy Land. And so what they did is they took soil from the Holy Land, brought it to that church in Rome, and that's where the friars are buried. And in the old days, when they would run out of room, they would take the bones out of the grave, stack them in the church, and the next person would be buried. And that's where it got the nickname of the Bone Church, because all the bones that are in there. Well, we mixed in some a nice cup of 4C gluten-free breadcrumbs, and we have this all mixed pretty nicely here. So we're going to make some salmon patties. These could be served as a sandwich on a bun with some whatever you like on it, lettuce, cheese, or something, or maybe put it together with some macaroni and cheese, or baked potato, or your vegetables, or whatever you think you would like to have go along with your salmon. These don't actually have any movie to go along with it, but maybe somewhere along the line I'll find one that has to do with salmon, and we could recreate it. Okay, so we got some nice salmon patties, and we're going to let those cook in there for a while on medium heat. You can just keep an eye on it. It's not going to take too long for them to cook. In just a little bit, we'll have our finished product. Well, here we are with some of our finished product of our salmon patties, and a little bit reflection on the way of the cross. Hopefully you'll get an opportunity to go to the stations, maybe have a nice Lenten meal, an old salmon patty, either before or after, and just really take the time to remember all the Lord did for our salvation, as we ask His blessing on you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.